Welcome to Navigating IBD with Stephanie A. Wynn, where she tackles the real challenges of living with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Whether you're newly diagnosed, supporting someone with IBD, or looking for better ways to manage your care, this is your space for honest conversation, practical guidance, and community. This podcast exists to change the narrative, one story, one strategy, and one breakthrough at a time. So join Stephanie as she navigates IBD together with you. Y'all ready? Let's get started.
We are back for another episode of Navigating IBD with your host, Stephanie A. Wynn. I'm super excited to be in the building because let me tell you, this episode is so amazing because I have my cousin in the building, my big cousin to be exact. And we're going to have a conversation today. So I need you to get your pen and paper and we're going to get right into this episode. But before we get started, let me introduce our guests. Our guest today is Pastor Rhontae Robinson. She is a family support specialist, pastor, and teacher of the gospel of Jesus Christ. She has spent the last 4 years working in social services, supporting individuals and families as they navigate complex life and health challenges. In addition to her professional work, Rhontae brings over 15 years of lived experience as a patient advocate, having walked alongside family members through various health matters and periods of declining health. Her work is built in compassion, faith, and deep commitment to strengthening families and communities through care, advocacy, and support. In this conversation, Rhontae will share insights from a caregiver's perspective, offering wisdom, encouragement, and practical reflections for families navigating Crohn's disease and other chronic illnesses. So, Rhontae, welcome to the show. We are super glad to have you today. Super excited to have this conversation. Yes. So we're going to get right into these. Let's talk about the first question we want to talk about from your perspective as a caregiver and family member. What are some of the things people often don't see or fully understand about supporting someone living with Crohn's disease?
Well, I think the first thing is trying to wrap your head around the fact that your family member actually has this horrible disease. Let's start there. And the idea of not understanding, sometimes, you have to support family even when you don't understand what they're dealing with. But one of the biggest things is going through that with them. And I guess one of the biggest things I learned with supporting my brother through his ordeal was that a lot of it, what he was going through and his behavior and the way he acted wasn't personal. They are really going through and they are really dealing with a lot emotionally, physically, and psychologically. And I think sometimes as family members, we don't see it from that perspective because we're not them. We're not going through that journey with them. So for me, I kind of came in at the tail end. My mom, she pretty much did all of that through the years with my brother. But in the latter, I took on the bulk of the major responsibility when the Crohn's got real bad in his life. And it had taken on a life of its own, so to speak.
So, and I just want to say, because this, when I was diagnosed, I didn't know anything about it. Like, there's no blueprint for us. And so what I learned was that it's it's Crohn. You know, when I went to the first GI doctor, it was like, it's Crohn's disease. You want to take this drug or that drug? And I'm like, well, what is that? Like, nobody gave me a pamphlet. Nobody gave me a roadmap. And then it wasn't until I got to the sixth doctor after losing the 2 children that they started putting the pieces together about what was going on in my life. Like, and I feel like that's a problem. That's a problem when we're dealing with, when you're trying to get to the root cause of this chronic illness. And it's chronic, it's horrible, it's horrific.
Yes.
It changes your lives. It changes your family trajectory of how they approach things. You know, I remember my mom and dad standing over my bed when I couldn't walk. I mean, I was down to 112 pounds and they were looking at me as if like they were scared. I saw this look in their eyes like, it doesn't look good, right? And so I think like, and for me, I was like, no, this is not Crohn's disease. What is that? And I just went down this rabbit hole of research. Like, I got to find out what this is. I'm not taking no medication because you're not telling me, the doctor is not telling me what this condition is. And I think you hit a good point there, because my mom and dad were my caregivers, and my mom would get aggravated with me because she would tell me, you got to eat. You just got to eat. And what they don't understand is I've sat on this toilet like 20 times today. Mm-hmm. I don't even want to look at food. Because if I look at food or if I eat food, I'm going to the bathroom. Or I just want to lay down. Let me just get some rest to get my mind right. But at one point along this journey, it helped me. But again, caregivers, like you said something so important. Sometimes caregivers really don't understand what Crohn's patients or ulcerative colitis patients go through, because it's not them. But that leads me into my second question. As a caregiver, what helped you stay grounded spiritually, emotionally, or practically during seasons of uncertainty or a challenge with your brother?
Wow. Good question. I know if it wasn't for my relationship with God, that is what definitely kept me sane, because that was something I never thought in my lifetime I would have to endure. I have sat by many bedsides. I have prayed for many, and I have in our family. I have had to send many of our family members back to God. But nothing I have done in this life could have ever prepared me for what I went through with my brother, spiritually and psychologically on me. But again, because of my belief and my faith in God, I was always able to circle back to that. Even though he doesn't want to accept that, I am that person now speaking up for you because you don't understand what's happening. Or you are in denial of what's next about to happen. I'm fighting with doctors left and right. I'm talking to our hospital administrators and pretty much begging them, please just be honest with my brother and let him know what he is looking at. Let him know that this disease has taken him to a place where he would have never thought it would have taken him. And unfortunately for him, it was the end. It was the end. So in dealing with that, it was the most stressful moment in my life, because guess what? I still had to keep living my life. I had to keep still going to work every day. I'm married. I'm a mother. I'm a grandmother. I'm a pastor. I am a senior family support specialist at my job, I am still responsible for so much in my life. But that had taken about 75% of my headspace of dealing with that, because it had, to me, I describe it as it had taken a life of its own and taken me down a whole journey that I never asked for and didn't even know how I would come out of it. So that's pretty much how I coped. It was always coming back to the same thing: prayer, believing God, knowing who God is in my life, and knowing and preparing for what I was looking at and preparing myself for what I was going to have to deal with. I had to do it all spiritually.
I could feel that even when you said, you still had to move on. You still had other people depending on you, the marriage, your ministry, your job, your family, you know what I mean? And so I think a lot of times when patients are diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease, and I'm going to say this in the Black and brown community, the caregiver is always, and I don't know about other cultures because I'm not in those doctor's appointments, but what I do see in our cultures in the Black and brown community, the caregiver is most of the time left out until the end. Like, nobody brings the caregiver in. And I think that needs to be a question. This is what we talk about when we go in and we train providers on how to communicate effectively with Black and brown patients. You have to ask those questions on the intake.
Yeah.
Who else is helping assist you with your health? Is there anyone in your family helping you navigate this condition? And most of the times we default and we shake our head, yes, in a doctor's appointment. And that's because we're just trying to get through this appointment so we can get home so we can feel better. But it really needs to be understood. Hey, we need your caregiver here at the beginning, because we're only going to get so much of what the doctor said, because first of all, we're dealing with fatigue, brain fogs. We're dealing with malnourishment. We're dealing with low iron, low energy. You tell a patient, hey, we need you to go over here and do such and such, you get this test done. It's not that the patient is being non-compliant, but if you're dealing with a patient who is flaring, they hear some of that, but a lot of that they don't hear. And that's why it's important either to include the caregiver, write it down. I know for me, God sent my doctor to me. I mean, he is amazing. Like, this man simply had me. He took me from 112 and I'm heavy Chevy.
That's all right.
That's all I would say. But let me tell you, I feel good. This is the best that I have felt in years. And it's because we work together as a team. And anytime I have any questions or inquiries, he's always there to answer my question. And he has so much compassion for GI. And I always ask him, Doc, what made you get into this line of work? And he said it, because I have compassion for people. And that's something that a lot of doctors don't have. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying all, and we're not here to bash. Let me clear this up. We're not here to, degrade doctors, but there are some doctors out here that doesn't treat patients well, specifically in Black and brown communities. And they label them as non-compliant simply when they don't understand the language. And that's one of the things that I want to talk about during this this episode. When do you feel like when your brother was going through this, which is my cousin, was going through this journey, do you think that there was a language barrier where he didn't understand what the doctor was saying at times?
I absolutely know that it was a language barrier, because you just said something. And when you are in pain And when you are experiencing the physical side effects of this disease, how can you think freely? You said something. You have brain fog. My brother's brain had changed the way it was supposed to operate originally. He would be confused. I will come in some days and he's talking about he's been to the movies and him and his friends just came back from fishing. Now you tell me, does that sound like someone who is capable of thinking and being able to receive instructions in a proper manner? The doctors knew this was the stage he had hit. And yet they would still come and say to me that my power of attorney document for his health care has still not kicked in because he can still make sound decisions. That was not a sound decision.
Mm-mm.
If someone says to you, and all they've been doing is laying in a hospital bed at this point for 3 weeks, they just came back from fishing and a movie? No, he's not in his right mind. And immediately, I should have had the opportunity as not just his caregiver, his sister, and his power of attorney. I should have had that opportunity then to speak for him and for his well-being and his health. But I will say, no, I'm not bashing anyone, but I will say I held a lot of anger because I saw what was unnecessarily done to my brother that should have never been done, and it should have never gotten to that point. They knew he would never come back from this. They knew this. And sometimes, unfortunately, in this climate that we live in, corporations and other entities, they see the dollar bill. And they think, oh, well, we can leave him in here for this. Every time we thought that he was getting ready to come home, they find some other reason he can't come home. So here we are. What are we doing? We're billing healthcare again. So every single time this would happen, and I am steadily fighting with administration about let's do what we need to do. Can we pull hospice in here yet? Because the writing is on the wall. And you all knew the writing was on the wall. Mm-hmm. But yet you did whatever you could to try to keep those funds flowing into your hospital. But at the cost of a life when it did not have to go that far.
Just me going through the loss of 2 children in this journey, I saw the dismissiveness, if you will, of the healthcare system. Like,
yes,
oh, that just happens. That's an anomaly. You could try again in 4 months. And so I'm like, I was just stuck. I was devastated. On the first pregnancy I went, for those that are new to the episode, on the first pregnancy in 2010, I went full term. We were so excited. And then for them to tell me, I called the doctor. I said, hey, I don't think my baby's moving. I think there's something going on. And just looking back at it, the abdominal cramps that I was having during that pregnancy, it's the same type of cramps I was having when I have a flare-up. The same symptoms. But nobody could tell me what was going on. They just said, oh, maybe just drink some water and then give us a call on Monday, or you can come in on Monday. Well, by the time that Monday came, my baby was gone. And so I had to go and deliver this child and prepare myself mentally, right, physically, emotionally. Like, I stopped speaking for like 4 months. I was muted. Like, I reclused, I withdrew from everyone. And then I got pregnant the second time, 4 months later, I did what they told me to do. But not knowing that my body wasn't well. My body wasn't well. And they knew that, like, it takes more than just
Absolutely.
you saying 4 months, because like, think about it. Like, this is a whole human. Like, elephants carry a baby, I think, for a year or something like that. And do you know how long your body has gone through hormonal changes, hormonal differences? And so fast forward, my mom and dad, during that time, my mom was like, oh my gosh, I gotta go. She became my caregiver again at that time. But it was, I need to go home. I need to get rid of the baby stuff. And then so I remember a nurse telling her, no, don't do that. Let her do that. She got to get through this. And I'm going to tell you, like, moving forward, come 2017, when I did finally get the correct diagnosis, it was like, oh, this is what it is. In 2010, your body was rejecting the baby because it was Crohn's disease. Did anybody tell you had high inflammation markers? And so here I go, like, maybe if I would have did this, it wouldn't have happened. This, and I started blaming myself, and I started going down this other hole. And so what I did was, I noticed going through this journey, I remember being in the hospital and the doctor told me, hey, I was flaring so bad. I mean, you've seen me at my lowest, like, worse. And so I remember the doctor said, I went to the doctor because my GI doctor said, hey, if you need some fluids, IV hydration over the weekend, just go to the ER, get some hydration because our office will be closed. Okay. I didn't wait for the weekend to get here, but it was after hours, so I couldn't go to my doctor's office to get it. I had to go to the ER. So what they did, they ended up, it was a Friday. I'll never forget. They admitted me, and then the GI consult said, hey, yeah, we're going to prep you for, we're going to give you some iron. I declined that. We're going to give you some, we're going to prep you for a colonoscopy. I said, wait a minute. I said, I'm in a flare, and you're going to put me on an anesthesia in a flare? And I remember my doctor saying, go get the fluids, don't get nothing else. That's it, right? But think about all the patients that go through the hospital and these doctors, and I'm not saying all doctors, and again, I'm not here to bash the providers, because not all providers aren't like this. But I get it that you have a protocol, but when it comes to a patient's health and their quality of life, my question to him was, if I have this colonoscopy and I'm in a flare, will that improve my quality of life? That doctor said, hey, listen, we're going to DC you, mean discharge, and you can get your colonoscopy with your GI doctor. I mean, just that cold, quick. Because now, and I don't go in the hospital saying that I'm a patient advocate, but what I am going to go in here, I'm going to make informed decisions about my health. And it's not to be a know-it-all. I didn't go to medical school. I don't even like talking about these terminologies. I don't even like when a doctor questions me about a biomarker or biosimilar or biologic. Patients don't go to medical school. However, what I would recommend to patients is, and that is why I wrote Navigating IBD, and we created this podcast, is because as a patient, it is your responsibility to understand what this doctor is telling you. You have to have your healthcare team all on the same page. Everybody has to be on the same page, and it has to be a collaborative effort, right? So, and that means asking the questions. If they say, hey, it's inflammatory bowel disease, you have a right as a patient to say, hey, doc, what does that mean? And what is that? What type of inflammatory bowel disease do I have? Is it ulcerative colitis? Is it Crohn's disease? Is it I ulcerative colitis with interdeterminate and all of these other extra terminologies or words that these patients don't understand. So that leads me to my third question. For families and caregivers walking along someone with IBD right now, what advice, encouragement, or reminder would you want them to hear?
I would say that if you're dealing with someone in your family right now who is living with the disease, if you can, try to really exercise compassion. Even though sometimes you don't feel like they deserve it, because sometimes when you're in a lot of pain, you can become really angry and you can become what we may call mean and not want to be around. Because you have to remember now, they're doing that to deflect off of what they're feeling, and you're the one there. So they got to be able to take this out on somebody. And I felt a lot of that from my brother, I was like, a part of me would be like, boy, I done worked all day and I'm running across this bridge and you still acting up, not understanding that what's talking is not him. It's the pain he's in. It's his emotions he's dealing with. He's dealing with the idea that I might not be here no more. We don't understand some of the mindsets that people with this disease are going through. And I would just say to anybody, please do the best you can to be compassionate towards your family member. And I'm not going to say exercise patience. Notice I said try to be more compassionable, because just understand if the shoe were on the other foot, you will want that same grace. Do your best to try to support them however the situation calls for it, in that it definitely has seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Stephanie, you said something earlier when you were talking about having to constantly go running to the bathroom. And that's one of those things also we have to understand, that when your loved one is going through this bout, that is one of the most major symptoms of this thing. And, you can feel like, I have not gone through it. I had a scare that I may have had this thing, and I was kind of going through some of those symptoms. And as you can understand, the first thing my mind went to was, oh my God, Lord, don't, please. I watched this thing firsthand. Please don't let it be me.
Yes.
So please, I will say to you all, have compassion for your loved one. Just do whatever you can to be a support system to them. A lot of times it's not a lot you can do, but your being there, believe it or not, will make the difference.
Absolutely. I remember you visiting me in the hospital when I had I was in that season of flares. And when you left that day, that was the last time I was at the hospital. I remember saying, I'm not coming back in here. Like,
right, amen.
I'm not coming back in here. Like, no. And so one of the things that I learned, each hospital visit was always different. And I remember telling my dad and my mom, like, I would tell my dad, I'm going to the hospital. I'll be back. And I could see this look in their eyes, like a look of fear. My mom would get so exhausted. Like she was just exhausted of, I remember hearing her one day, she didn't hang the phone up, and I could hear her crying and saying, please, God, don't take my baby. Please, God, don't take her. Let her have the doctors have compassion for her.
Yes.
And that's what I do every time that I'm going to get lab work, going to get a diagnostic test, I always pray for compassion. When they see my name, the nurses and the nursing staff or the medical staff or the medical team, they will have compassion. So that's one of the things that I would also recommend to the listeners out there. Sometimes we get angry and we want to point a finger at a thing or people, places, or things when we have three fingers pointing back at us. And we as patients and caregivers have to do, if you've done everything in your power that you can to support this person with inflammatory bowel disease, then you've done what you were called to do. I know it gets frustrating, mentally draining, physically draining. You're just burnt out. And self-care, that is a thing. Self-care is so important when it comes to caregivers. I don't know what I would have did without my family. Like, it was times I couldn't even clean my home, my cousins. And it's a lot of us. My cousins had to come and help me clean my house because I couldn't physically do it. And I was too ill. Let me tell you something. What I do know about this thing, pride is off the table. When you need help, you got to speak up. You got to speak up. So this has been a really good episode. Rhontae, thank you so much for joining us today and just sharing your words of encouragement. And I really thank you for impacting our audience, because there's somebody out there that's going through the same thing what we both have experienced. You know, these are real stories, real patients, real caregivers. We live this. We've seen this. And it's a tall and long journey that you have to navigate through. And for my patients out there that are just newly diagnosed, please get you a caregiver or somebody that you can trust. I'm super excited. This has been such a great episode. Rhontae, you'll have to come back on the show. We would love to have you back. And until next time, I am your host, Stephanie A. Wynn. Until next time, peace. Thanks for listening to Navigating IBD with Stephanie Wynn. If you're ready to take the next step in managing your IBD, grab a copy of Navigating IBD, a 6-week blueprint for better gut health at navigatingibd.com. It's filled with practical strategies to help you understand your symptoms, manage your flares, and advocate for the care you deserve. Until next time, keep trusting your body and moving forward. Peace.